Greetings, adventurers, and welcome back to Abnormal Voyages. My name is David, and today we find ourselves in Corbin, Kentucky. As you may have guessed behind me, this is where it all began for Kentucky Fried Chicken. We're at the very spot where Colonel Harlan Sanders opened his first restaurant. We're going to learn all about this tasty chicken and that wonderful man. Come tag along.
We're going to a place that you've never heard of before. It's Abnormal Voyages. You're gonna learn something new. We're gonna open new doors. It's Abnormal Voyages.
Visiting this first location is a spectacle all to itself, with plenty of features honoring not only the past, but the current KFC model. This is truly a mecca for any fan of this fast food chain. But before it was a chicken restaurant, this was actually an entire square that was mainly used as a gas station and motel stop. There's a very brief timeline located outside that you can check out to kind of see the growth of this particular spot and how KFC came to be from the very beginning to where it is now. And of course, credit for all of this does go to the very famous Colonel Harlan Sanders.
When Colonel Sanders first opened his location here, he called it Sanders Cafe. To stay true to that, they've kept the name right here. This sign is just like the original one. And inside is not only a wonderful restaurant, but an entire museum dedicated to KFC. Let's get inside, check it out, and grab some chicken.
Once you step through the doors, you are greeted by none other than the Colonel himself, wearing his iconic white suit and ready to give you a full bucket of chicken. Now, Harlan Sanders himself was a very interesting man. He was actually born in Indiana, not Kentucky, in September of 1890. It would be quite a while before the seeds of KFC would actually begin to grow. As a matter of fact, here, where the gas station was that originally brought Sanders to Corbin, wouldn't open until 1930. Up until then, Sanders kind of jumped around the country, trying out lots of different jobs, including at one point being a lawyer and even owning a ferry boat service. On display here, you can find a lot of original documents and pictures that come from Sanders' own personal life. Another kind of fun fact, though we know him as Colonel Sanders, he actually never was a colonel. That title was given to him as an honorary one, though I think it's safe to say he certainly deserved it. A definite centerpiece of the museum here is one of the Colonel's famous white suits and walking cane. Once he became the official mascot of KFC, you never saw him without this look. And in a nutshell, here on the walls you can see a truncated version of everything that Colonel Harlan Sanders went through to arrive at the chicken dynasty that he did. He certainly stands as an entrepreneur who never gave up. He tried tons of different things before finally landing on what it was that became his legacy. Very inspirational, and then right next to this was a model of the original Sanders Court and Cafe. Here you can see where the original restaurant was, as well as his entire motel chain and the little gas station there, ready to serve any tourists that happen to be coming through Corbin. A little different from your modern KFC, to say the least. To give you a peek into the past, they even have a recreated room here that is much like the Sanders Court motel rooms would have been. Nothing outrageously fancy, but nice and comfortable, and a great place to lay your head for the evening while you're on a road trip. They've also recreated the original kitchen of the Sanders Cafe. This is where the Colonel perfected his pressure-cooked chicken recipe and served it to the world. At first, when this was just a service station, the chicken was kind of an afterthought, but it became so popular that Sanders knew he had something special on his hands. Here's a table set up in the same style that they would have had back in the Sanders Cafe days. You'll notice that it is certainly very home style, very comfy, and definitely has that southern hospitality feel to it. The restaurant began to gain notoriety, and soon people were coming from all over the country to try this fried chicken they'd heard about. And as the chicken gained fame, so did the man, Colonel Harlan Sanders. Colonel Sanders had a huge personality, and people that came through left remembering not only the delicious food, but the man who had served it. And what exactly was in the Colonel's chicken recipe? Well, even to this day, it's considered a top secret. Out of all the herbs and spices in the world, 11 special ones mixed together in a perfect blend form KFC's secret formula chicken recipe. This recipe was created by Colonel Sanders himself, and to this day remains one of the most closely guarded company secrets. That flavor is certainly a big part of KFC's success, but so is their marketing.
And now we come to possibly the most iconic fast food item, the bucket of chicken. We have different buckets all throughout the years, and you can even rotate them to give you a good look at what's on all sides.
This famous bucket of chicken debuted in 1957. It was created by the Colonel in collaboration with Pete Harmon, his very first franchisee out in Utah. Up until this bucket, people had to buy their chicken individually by the piece. Pete had decided that maybe it'd be better if people could buy a whole bunch at once or get a family platter. And soon, the bucket of chicken was born. Fast forward to today, and this red and white striped bucket is known all over the world. You'd be pretty hard-pressed to come up with any fast food packaging that's more iconic and recognizable than the bucket of chicken. And this is just one example of the ways KFC got their name and brand really out there in front of people. There are countless examples of items that have the classic red and white motif on them and the Colonel's smiling face telling you, hey, don't you think you'd like some Kentucky Fried Chicken? Brand recognition was a huge thing for KFC, and they certainly succeeded in it. As a matter of fact, today, just going by sales, KFC is the world's second largest fast food empire, right behind the golden arches of McDonald's. But even with all the success that's been achieved, the Colonel and KFC never wanted to forget their humble roots and where they came from. Just the fact that this museum exists here in the original location shows their commitment to their past. But remembering your past doesn't mean you can't keep growing, and in 1965, KFC officially went international. As a matter of fact, KFC has the distinction of being the first ever fast food chain in China, as well as the first American fast food chain in England, Australia, and New Zealand. Just like here in the United States, people all over the world fell in love with this delicious chicken. As a matter of fact, in Japan, the traditional Christmas meal happens to be KFC. No matter where you may travel to, chances are they've been touched and influenced by the Colonel. Speaking of the Colonel, he's kind of become a pop culture icon all on his own. You can find Funko Pops, posters, clocks, mugs, bobbleheads, all sorts of things bearing the resemblance of Colonel Harlan Sanders. This level of personal fame may not have been what he set out to achieve in the beginning, but if it brings more people to trying his delicious food, I think he'd be happy about it. And speaking of delicious food...
And now, we dig in to a quick chicken break. And after eating all that chicken, you can work it off with a pleasant stroll to Sanders Park.
Sanders Park is a great little monument here in Corbin. It's not a huge area, but everywhere you look there are little touches of KFC, from the benches with the Colonel's face to the Abbey Road-inspired mural on the wall, and even the fire hydrants are painted like the iconic chicken buckets.
Corbin is truly the heart of KFC, where the whole story began. But to dig a little bit deeper, we're going to head to the current world headquarters. We're now in Louisville, Kentucky, at the KFC World Headquarters. Inside this building, we have the Colonel Harlan Sanders Museum to find out even more about this wonderful food and the man who invented it.
This is the current offices for KFC, and the building is very impressive. It kind of reminded me of an old southern mansion. You then get a very warm welcome to the museum.
Welcome. My name is Colonel Harlan Sanders, and this museum is all about my life, don't you see? I was born in Henryville, Indiana, not too far from here. When I was 10, I learned an important lesson about hard work. Truth be told, it was a tongue lashing from my mother I shall never forget. I made a resolution then that I would never let anything interfere with me doing the best jobs possible. And that lesson is probably why Kentucky Fried Chicken came to be. So come on in, make yourself at home.
Much like the museum at the original location in Corbin, you can find several pictures and artifacts from Harlan Sanders' life. However, they tend to focus here more on the man himself as opposed to Kentucky Fried Chicken as a whole. From his birth and early days, all the way through trying different jobs and having highs and lows until landing at KFC, all of it is very well documented here and makes for some very interesting reading. There are lots of cool things to point out, but one that I really enjoyed seeing was here in the section about the pressure cooking. The entire process of pressure cooking chicken was something that the Colonel himself invented, and they had on display one of his very original pressure cooking pots. Along with that were other iconic pieces of his life, be it a coloring book or his famous bow tie, and plenty of promotional items reading Colonel Sanders or having his smiling face on him. And like any good museum honoring the Colonel, they of course had one of his famous white suits on full display, and next to it was a dress worn by his wife, Claudia Sanders. She was commonly nicknamed the Colonel's Lady and was a fantastic life partner for Harlan Sanders. You can find a few pieces of literature here, including Finger Lickin' Good, written by Colonel Harlan Sanders, and then other merchandise. This clock would look great in anybody's kitchen, I'm sure. And while you're here, you've got to take time to look at all the pictures on the wall that catalog Colonel Sanders' many adventures around the world. After his official retirement from the day-to-day business life, the Colonel spent the later half of his life traveling around, just being a goodwill ambassador for Kentucky Fried Chicken. He was basically a living legend at this point, so everyone was very happy to meet him. His travels took him all over the world as he spread the good word of chicken. People couldn't get enough of the Colonel, and everywhere he went, tons of smiles soon followed. They have a few more examples here of items that were made based on the Colonel, You got some nice standard kitchen jars there. He was on a calendar with some horses, apparently. There was even the Ballad of Colonel Sanders. I'm gonna have to look that up sometime and give it a listen. I'm sure it's a great song. This is a commemorative golden pressure cooker, very fancy, and there was tons of different awards and honorary things given to the Colonel. But one of my favorite items was Colonel Sanders' own desk. They had it preserved here. This is the one that was in his actual office and where he ran his day-to-day operations from. To me, this stood as a great reminder that even though KFC is this huge corporation now and is all over the world, it all kind of started with just a regular man and his can-do attitude. If anything, Colonel Sanders taught us to never give up on yourself or your dreams, and that truly anything is possible if you just stick to it. Our final stop is at the Cave Hill Cemetery here in Louisville, Kentucky. This is where we find the final resting place of Claudia Sanders and Colonel Harlan Sanders. This hard-working man had finally been allowed to rest. We stopped by here to honor him and all that he had achieved.
A worthy memorial to a very worthy and wonderful man. Not to mention some delicious chicken. Well, that's all the time we have for today, adventurers. My name is David, and this has been Abnormal Voyages. Thanks for tagging along. We'll see you in the next one.